Hi, and welcome to another edition of Musician Accents. I'm Scott Seaton, the music director of the North State Symphony. And Musician Accents is a time for us to get to know a little bit more intimately the players of the symphony. And with us today, we have Tim Koop, our principal flutist. And Tim, how you doing?
I'm doing well. Good morning, Scott. How are you?
Doing great, considering all the circumstances.
Yes.
um, so, it's been some crazy times. How have you been holding up through all of this?
Well, surprisingly well. I've been holding up. When all this kind of started back in middle of March, it was crazy, and it was definitely didn't was going to be happening in the weeks and months ahead. Definitely have never been through something like this personally for me, so definitely a new thing. But I've been very fortunate to have a day job as well as my husband to continue with. So haven't had any interruption in income, which I know so many in this world have, and so been very fortunate to have that, and been very staying healthy. Thankful for that as well. So no issues there.
Well, that's great to hear, and I know many other musicians in the so-called Freeway Philharmonic are not as fortunate as you, especially those who rely on all of these gigs as their primary source of income. So hopefully, all of this starts to subside very soon, and we can get back to some semblance of a normal performance life. But so let's back up a little bit. First of all, how long have you been a musician in the North State Symphony?
Well, before actually it was called North State Symphony, I'll just backtrack just a little bit. I actually started playing with the orchestra when it used to be the Chico Symphony, back when I was about 16. Not going to count how many years ago that was. So at the time, my flute teacher was principal flute, and she invited me to play second flute. And that was my very first experience playing not only in an orchestra, but with the Chico Symphony at the time. And so I have played with the orchestra, and I know there's even some longtime members who probably were playing with me at the time as well. And in and out, leaving Chico to go to school and move to other areas, and doing other parts of my life. I came back to the North State Symphony in 2012 when there was an audition for the second flute position. And ever since I've came back, I've been playing with the orchestra ever since.
Well, it's certainly great to have such an enormously talented musician with us, and you've been principal flute now for 4 years, if I'm correct. And how does it feel to be in such a position?
It feels absolutely great, and I was so excited to take on this position 4 years ago, and it's been such a rewarding position to be in, and to play such great symphonic music with all of my colleagues.
Well, that's good to hear. Um, well, now let's back up even further. And my first sort of digging question for you is, how did you get started in music, and what led you to choose the flute?
Well, I first started my interest in music actually from when I was very little, the fourth grade, when our family first moved to Chico. And I actually started on the alto saxophone, and I played in the band at the school. And my first interest in that was not only just the saxophone in itself, but my older brother actually was taking a group piano class at school. And before I even started the saxophone, I thought to myself, I want to see what music is all about. So that's what spurred me to start on an instrument. And I later also took private piano lessons. I only played the saxophone for about a year. So and because I wanted to try something else, to see what other instruments sounded like. So I actually switched over to the clarinet in grade school, and eventually to the French horn in junior high. And so it wasn't until I was about 14 years old. In about the 8th grade is when I was looking at all the flutes in the band I was playing in, and there were about 20 or so. And I was listening to them, and I thought, you know, I want to be one of those flute players, and because they play a lot of notes, and so I wanted to be one of those players. And so from that point on, I actually taught myself actually how to make a flute sound on my own, and tried the very beginning steps of playing the flute from when I was in junior high. And from there, I took lessons, and now I'm here.
Well, that's great. So you're like myself, a product of the public school system. It sounds correct.
Yes, I am.
Oh, there we go. It must have been hard to get away from the saxophone, but you know, flute's a great choice as well. At least you didn't hear a violinist at that time, it seems, because they play far more notes, it seems, than a lot of the woodwinds.
Correct. Yes.
And do you have a particular moment in life, or maybe a singular experience that solidified your career as a musician?
Well, I definitely grew up, you know, with music, surrounding my whole life. So ever since not only when I started music as a young person, but even in junior high when I started with the flute, it wasn't until probably 2 or 3 years after that, when I was in the high school age, is when I really knew that this is what I wanted to do. And there was several points. It's hard to actually kind of pick one, but I was taking private lessons at the time, and my teacher really pushed me to strive to be the best that I could be. And when I was continuing to play flute in the band at school and getting exposed to the orchestra scene and playing in different honor groups in high school, I think being around other musicians that also shared my passion in the high school time really solidified my choice to pursue music. And so that was at that point where I decided this is what I'm going to strive for and be a part of my life.
That's great. Do you remember the first time that you attended, say, a live professional orchestra concert?
I want to say it was probably back in high school, I want to say. So I was probably just starting high school, I want to say, either freshman or sophomore.
Okay.
And at that time is when I really loved the sounds that a symphony orchestra made. And I just wanted to be a part of that, and to be on the stage making those sounds.
Right, absolutely. And having, you know, being a professional musician and having played in lots of orchestras, and obviously having gotten there, you've put in a lot of hours on the flute. And during that time, discovered many composers, probably some that you really like, some that you probably don't like as much. But do you have any favorite composers?
Oh, yes. There are definitely a few. I would say there's a few composers from the Romantic era that are really some of my favorites. Claude Debussy, Beethoven, Brahms. I definitely, some of my favorite symphonies were written by Beethoven and Brahms. Maurice Ravel, another favorite composer of all of his music that he wrote. And so some of those composers, whenever I see any of their works programmed or being performed by an orchestra, it really excites me, because I know it's going to be great music.
Yeah, it seems like in the past several years we've had a lot of those really great large scale symphonic works that have a lot of wonderful flute writing. What was it, last year? This is 2020. Yeah, last year when we did Brahms 4. I mean, that's just one of the most hauntingly eerie but beautiful flute moments, I think, in at least his repertoire. And
absolutely, yes.
Yeah. And then a few years before that, I think we were talking about, I think one of our joint favorite pieces is Ravel's Daphnis and Chloe, which, obviously he had a great love of the flute and explored all of the possible capabilities in that singular piece, and the way he writes some of those lines with a lot of the dovetailing and just going over the extreme registers of all the flutes put together. And of course, the solo flute moment is just incredible with its very simplistic background. It's just a great piece.
Yes.
Would you say that was probably one of your, favorite North State Symphony concerts is performing the Ravel, Daphnis, and Chloe?
Yes, yeah, and definitely a most memorable one as well. When I first heard that this piece was going to be programmed, my excitement just went through the roof, and just seeing that I was going to get the opportunity to play this piece with my colleagues and get to and play this gorgeous flute solo that he wrote. I was so excited, and then when it actually came true and when it was happening, it was just such a rush of great music to be playing and to be surrounded by all my friends and colleagues while playing this music.
Oh, I can't even. I mean, from a conductor, it's obviously a one experience, but to be in the woodwind section for that piece in particular, I mean, the opening moments of the second suite, just so many notes.
Yes. I can count on my fingers how many there are.
and I love for that performance we had, the chorus component, because a lot of times you go here live and it's lacking that aspect. But I think you have to have all of the textures that Ravel wrote for present to really appreciate the enormity of the sound that's around you. And I'm so happy that we got to do that in both Chico and Reading. That was such a great time. I hope we have more opportunities to do those grandiose pieces in the next year or so, because who knows what's going to happen, right?
Yes.
Well, Tim, it's been so great talking with you and learning more about your background. And of course, it's so wonderful having you as part of the North State Symphony and your incredible talents and hard work as part of the flute and woodwind section. And I can't wait to make music with you again and the whole symphony. And thank you for taking the time out of your day to chat with me in this Musician Accents installment.
My pleasure. It's been a great speaking with you.
All right. Well, thank you, Tim.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.